If the time stops at 1:09 a.m., roll over and pray that they think you're asleep. The title basically says it all. If you're wondering who they are, well, that's the strange part. It's your family, or roommate, or whatever. I've never heard of this happening before, so I'm not sure what I can really do about it. Other than pretend I'm sleeping, of course. That's the only thing that really seems to keep them docile. Let me explain what's been happening in a little more detail. This has been going on for the past 3 nights now. I didn't really think much of it the first night, because I honestly thought my family was pulling some prank on me. That is until last night, when I was attacked by my wife. The first night was a pretty early night for my wife Kelsey, and my twin boys Eric and Aaron. All of us were out cold by 9 p.m. We had a pretty long day of splitting wood to stock up for the upcoming winter. That night I woke up to an odd silence in the house. Like everyone had left and I was alone in the house. I grabbed my phone and checked the time, 1:09. I rolled over just to check if my wife was still sleeping, and when I found the bed empty I sat up and looked around. The house was pitch black other than the hall light by my boys' room we left on, and with that dim light I could see 3 shadows cast along the hallway wall as my bedroom was left open. "Kelsey?" I groggily called out. I could see all 3 shadows twitch at the sound of my voice. Like they were startled. "Kels." I called a little louder. This time a shiver was sent down my spine as all 3 heads of the shadows looked in my direction. "What is that?" I whispered to myself, tossing the blankets off from me as I got up to investigate. I tiptoed to my door with a feeling of unease growing in the pit of my stomach. Once I got to the door I peeked around and was pretty creeped out at what I saw. Kelsey and the boys were standing still as statues with their bodies turned towards the boys' room, their necks however strained to stare directly at me. Huge smiles that looked painful to maintain plastered on all of their faces. "What the hell are you guys doing?" I asked with a chuckle, thinking they were playing a joke on me. Now that I think back, it didn't make much sense thinking they were joking. After all, why would they get up in middle of the night for that with no guarantee I'd even wake up? Their bodies made an unnatural twitch at the sound of my voice, which made me jump back in surprise. This was when I really started to think something might be wrong. A feeling of dread washed over me, and I began to sweat. Then the sound of the clock on the microwave beeping as if it reset rang through the house, made me jump in the air as I let out a startled yelp. My boys turned instantly and walked back into their room, Kelsey doing the same. Her smile disappeared and she walked by me like a zombie and crawled back in bed, snoring as if she were sleeping the whole time. Confused as hell, I walked back to my side of the bed and checked the time on my phone. "What the?" I said to myself as I noticed the time. 1:10 a.m. No way, only a minute had passed since I first woke up. It had to have been at a very minimum of 5 minutes. Still though, I shook it off and got back into bed, deciding to bring it up to Kelsey in the morning. The next morning I woke up and everything was back to normal. I could hear the boys playing in the living room and smelled bacon and eggs as Kelsey cooked breakfast. I got up and walked out with a smile as I remembered their little joke from the night before. "Good morning, pranksters," I said with a laugh. They all stared at me with a confused look on their faces. "Huh?" my wife finally said. "Last night? All of you standing in the hallway smiling at me?" Gotta admit it was a good one. Creeped me out a little bit. I said, shaking my head. "Ryan, don't even joke like that. You know those creepy smiling people stories freak me out." Kelsey scolded. "Hey, you're the one trying to freak me out in the middle of the night." I laughed. "By the way, how in the hell did you get the phones to stop time at 1:09? That was a good touch." My whole family was looking at me like I was a nut job. Then simultaneously they all started shouting it wasn't funny and that I was scaring them. I was bewildered. I didn't know if they were still in on the joke or if somehow they had all been sleepwalking. That wouldn't explain the time though. "Okay," I shouted. "I must have been having a dream. Don't freak out." I turned and walked back into the room more confused than ever. I knew I wasn't dreaming. Were they this serious about their little prank, or did they really not remember? Either way, I figured I'd settle it that night. I'd simply record them with my phone if they tried it again. That'd ruin their little joke pretty quick. Satisfied with my plan, I went about my day. The boys helped split and stack more wood while Kelsey did some running in town. Before I knew it, it was night time again and we were all in bed. I made sure to have my phone charged and right next to me, ready to catch them in the act. Once again, I woke up hours later, that same eerie silence filled the house. This time my adrenaline started pumping as the feeling of dread hit me like a ton of bricks. I grabbed my phone and lit the screen up. 109. I tried to switch it to record, but my phone was frozen. I looked over to the hall and seen the same shadows as the night before. This time, a little closer. My blood ran cold as I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the TV was left on, but the picture was froze. It seemed all electronics were froze or something, adding to the creepy feeling that engulfed my body. I got up once again and tiptoed to the door. I peeked my head around and had to cover my mouth to stifle a yelp. Kelsey and the boys were standing facing me directly this time, only somehow their smiles even bigger than before. Now that they were a good 5 feet closer, I could see just how wide open and bloodshot their eyes were. When I moved my hand to cover my mouth, all three of them took a giant step forward. Naturally, I took a step back. They mimicked with another huge step forward. This time, since Kelsey was bigger than the boys, she stepped ahead. She was now maybe 3 to 5 feet away, her eyes opening even wider, as she looked extremely excited. I turned around to jump back in bed, and as I did so I heard loud booming as they gave chase. I felt huge blows hit my back, far harder than any of them should be able to inflict. "What is that?" I shouted as my back ached from the impact. I was now in bed and I yanked the covers over my head. Childish, I know, but hey, I wasn't about to strike my wife. Thankfully, as I laid still, the blows stopped and I heard heavy breathing from what I assumed was Kelsey, only it sounded way too deep and raspy. Then the breathing stopped altogether and silence filled the room. "I know you're not asleep," she whispered so fast I barely made out what she said. Just then the beeping of the microwave filled the house and the TV resumed. I heard the sound of soft footsteps leave the room as the boys went back to their rooms, followed by pressure next to me in bed as Kelsey climbed back under the covers. I quickly grabbed my phone and checked the time, 1:10 a.m. This didn't make any sense. I did my best to go back to sleep, but needless to say, I didn't sleep much. I tossed and turned as I tried to figure out what in the hell was happening. I tried to figure out what steps to take next. The only thing I could think of was to pretend I was asleep next time, since my lack of movement seemed to stop the blows. If they thought I was asleep altogether, maybe they'd just stand creepily in the hallway? It was worth a shot, I guess. I'll update tomorrow and let you guys know how last night went for me. It was still extremely scary, but hey, I didn't get attacked, so that's a start, right? I've got another plan for tonight too, but I'll just put that in the update tomorrow. Wish me luck, and if anyone's got any ideas as what to do here, please feel free to help. My friends' list of sleepover rules are beyond bizarre. I've never been good at making friends, or any type in bond with people in general. I'm not even close to most of my family members like I'm close to Jessie. Jessie is my best friend. I've known her only for a year and a half, but she's literally my world. She's the only person I can speak to, the only person who understands me. I've never slept over at anyone's house that isn't mine, and even when I'm supposed to be staying at a family member's house, I get anxious and they have to call my parents to collect me. This results in my parents having to cancel everything that they plan. My parents resent me. I'm a huge burden to them because of just how anxious I am. Jessie asked if I wanted to have a sleepover at her house. I'd never been to her house, or anyone for that matter, and I'll admit I was ecstatic, but also hesitant. In case I got anxious and ruined the sleepover and my friendship, I knew I was probably overthinking, but it still scared me. Jessie gave me some time to think, and I agreed. I told my parents and they were pretty shocked, but decided to let me go because I had an actual shot at making a best friend for life. The car pulled up onto a large driveway, connected to an even larger house. It was huge, like mansion-sized. Probably the biggest house I'd ever laid eyes on. Me and my parents made our way over to the front door, which was about twice my dad's size, and he was 6 feet 7 inches. There was no doorbell. Instead, there was an abnormally large silver knocker in the middle of the door. I knocked. Jessie answered the door. When she saw me, her face seemed to light up and her smile grew larger. She instantly leaned in for a hug. Jess's mother and father also approached the door and stood behind Jessie, also with a comforting smile on their face. Jess's father was also tall like my own dad. He was your typical dad-looking person. It was the same with her mother too. It was almost surreal. Jessie toured me around her huge house, which took about an hour in itself. Then we ventured off into Jess's bedroom, which was huge and pink. Very pink. Like every object was pink. After staying in Jess's room playing games and eating candy for a while, her mother walked into the room and placed a sheet of A4 paper on Jess's bed. The way she walked was so elegant and graceful, like a ballerina. I took off my headphones and grabbed the sheet of paper. It read, "Sleepover rules. Follow these rules to ensure you have a safe and happy sleepover. 1. Don't eat too much candy. They can smell it from miles away. 2. Do not leave the bedroom after 1:45 a.m. Please remember this rule, your life depends on it. 3. If you happen to wake up during the night for no apparent reason, hide under the bed within 25 seconds, that way they cannot see you. 4. Do not get snacks from the mini fridge during 8:56 p.m. and 9:47 p.m. You will not like what you find. 5. Make sure to turn off any light source apart from the TV. You must keep this on all through the night. I can't emphasize how important this is. 6. If you wake up randomly and see Jessie sitting upright, awake in her bed, run. Lock yourself in the en-suite and do not come out for the rest of the night. If Jessie knocks and says she hurt herself and needs help, ignore her and do not reply. 7. If you wake up and hear the baby crying, ignore it completely, don't even move, it isn't the baby. 8. Do not attempt to speak to Jessie during the night, and if she speaks to you, do not reply. This is crucial if you want to stay safe. 9. If you hear a dog whimpering and scratching on the bedroom door, drag Jessie under the bed and then hide behind the bookshelf. We do not own a dog. 10. If you hear a ringing in your ear, run, leave the house, this is the only exception, if you don't, we all die. Have a lovely sleepover, Tina. It had to be some kind of joke, these couldn't have been real, but I still have a gut feeling that I should follow these creepy-ass rules. I folded the piece of paper and placed it in my right pocket. Then sat down again to play with Jessie. After about an hour, Jess's dad opened the door. It's bedtime, girls, you must go to sleep, now. I suddenly got very anxious, because this is when I had to start following the creepy rules. I held back all of my emotion because I didn't want to lose a friend like Jessie. Me and Jessie both got into bed. We topped and tailed so my head was at the bottom end of her bed. Night, Tina. Sweet dreams, she said, in between yawns. I don't know how my dreams were going to be sweet after what I'd read. Surprisingly, I fell asleep pretty quick. My sleep was pretty deep, and I didn't have any nightmares like most nights. And that's when I woke up. My stomach sank. I turned to see Jessie sitting upright in her bed, wide awake. I didn't want to believe that these rules were true, but my instinct was to just run. I bolted into the en-suite and locked the door behind me. After a solid few minutes of hyperventilating in Jess's en-suite, I decided to unlock the door. I thought it was all probably stupid anyway. Just before my hand reached the lock, someone knocked on the door. I froze. Tina, help me. I've hurt my head and my vision's going blurry. I desperately wanted to open the door, but something in my head advised me against it. Jessie kept screaming for help. I slumped into the corner, shaking with every breath I took. She was screaming for hours. It was unbearable. Her voice got less human-like and more distorted with every screech. By the time she stopped, I was already half asleep, to put into perspective just how long her screaming went on for. I woke up, the light from the sun outside made my eyes sting. My ears were still throbbing. I slowly got up from the corner of the bathroom and unlocked the door. Jessie was playing on her PS5, everything was totally normal. Hey Tina, she said in her usual jaunty tone. I think your mom and dad are already outside waiting for you in their car. I couldn't take speaking, everywhere in my body ached. I picked up my stuff and started walking downstairs. Jess's parents waited at the bottom of the stairs to greet me. "Your parents are outside waiting for you, Tina," said her mother with a smile. "How did they get here so quickly?" It was only 8:45. I could see the open door and my parents' car outside. I was so relieved. I was gonna leave this place finally. Jess's dad showed me out, and I hopped into my parents' car. I can't begin to explain how relieved I was to see my parents' smiling faces again. Jessie and her family waved at me as I drove away. "How was the sleepover, sweetie?" asked my dad. I was about to reply when I got a notification on my phone. It was a message from my mom. It said, "Hey Tina. I was just messaging to ask what time you wanted me and your dad to pick you up from Jess's house." I looked back up at my mom, who was driving, and then to my dad, who was smiling eerily at me. Shit. I forgot to leave on the TV. I felt sick to my stomach. "Forgot something?" asked my dad.